Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, and welcome to today's upload. Before we jump into it, folks, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks, well, they're available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things, they really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? Okay, guys, today's upload is really some damning evidence against the government and their control of what the media feeds us and how they feed us, and how they kind of narrate these attacks, whether it be Dogman, reptilian, Bigfoot, alien, whatever you want to say. I got to thinking about the Devin Williams case, and about a year and 10 months ago, somewhere around there, a person that worked with the government reached out to me and just shared a little bit of information really quick, really briefly, and then just kind of went off. I've never been able to contact them again. But what they told me was that Devin Williams was transporting dogmen via his tractor trailer. He realized what he was transporting, got sketched, went into the Tonto National Forest there, and then was reported missing for a long time. Some people classify that as a missing 411. At one time it was. His body was located kind of scattered about. So that kind of makes you wonder what or who silenced him. Was it Dogman? Was it the government and their men in black? I truly believe that the government is using dogmen as a weapon of war, of intimidation, and of control. Another gentleman reached out to me about the Eye of Canada, Rene Levasseur, the island that sits kind of in northern Canada. There's a D.U.M.B. there, deep underground military base. Not an American one, but it is a deep underground military base. It's not even Canadian. It's the government. And via another gentleman, they use dogmen to maintain and patrol that secluded part of Canada. It's kind of interesting that Rene Levasseur and the lake surrounding it was created by an asteroid, 5 kilometers in width. Was it an asteroid or was it a ship? I believe that it probably was a ship that landed maybe collided, but helped dig out and create that deep underground military base. Obviously, there was a deep underground military base in Dulce, New Mexico, long before the government made a pact with the Draco. There's long been talk about dogmen with, or alien with dog-like heads. The Sumerian, the Anunnaki, all talked about them. There's been in Dulce, they talk about Phil Schneider, great American hero, Bill Cooper, Tom Castiello, all talk about Nightmare Hall and the atrocities that occur there, the creatures that they create there. Large, bipedal, hairy creatures that can mimic the sound of a baby crying or a woman screaming. What do we hear in the woods all the time of accounts, these certain accounts that people are talking about? It sounded like a baby. It sounded like a woman screaming. And then when I went to investigate, this huge creature came and attacked me. The government and these reptilians created these things. Not all, but some. I do believe they created the crawler as cheap security, expendable security, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to jump into, I've got a really terrifying example of the government and covering up a Dogman attack and a death. I want to get into something real quick. Two things that deal with the government and deal with the absolute lack of respect for us, respect for the people who really matter. You know, it's us. It's not them, but yet it is, isn't it? This first part of information that I'm going to share with you really goes hand in hand with the second part. And actually, it is kind of overlooked by a lot of cryptozoologists and researchers. For some reason, I don't know why, but I think looking at these deep underground military bases and things that occur there is probably key to understanding what and where the hell these things possibly came from. Phil Schneider was a brave man and lost his life to what appeared to be a military-style execution in January of 1996. He was found dead in his apartment with piano wire still wrapped around his neck. According to some sources, he had been brutally tortured repeatedly before being killed. Phil Schneider was an ex-government engineer who was involved in building underground bases. He was one of 3 people to survive the 1979 firefight between a large Greys and United States intelligence and military forces at Dulce Underground Base. In May of 1995, Phil Schneider did a lecture on what he had discovered. 7 months later, he was tortured and killed by those for who he had previously worked for. This man's final acts should not go unnoticed. It is because of the horrendous structure of the federal government that I feel directly imperiled not to tell anyone about this material. How long I will be able to do this is anybody's guess. However, I would like to mention that this talk is going to be broken up into 4 main topics. Each of these topics will have some bearing on what you people are involved in, whether you are patriots or not. I want you to know that the United States is a beautiful place. I have gone to more than 70 countries, and I cannot remember any country that has the beauty as well as the magnificence of its people like the United States. To give you an overview of basically what I am and who I am, I started off and went through engineering school. Half of my school was in that field, and I built up a reputation for being a geologist/engineer who, as well as structural engineer with both military and aerospace applications. I have helped build 2 main bases in the United States that have some significance as far as what is called the New World Order. The first base is the one in Dulce, New Mexico. I was involved in a 1979 firefight with alien humanoids. I was one of the survivors. I'm probably the only talking survivor you will ever hear. 2 other survivors are under close guard. I am the only one left who knows the detailed files of this entire operation. 66 Secret Service agents, FBI, Black Beret, and the like died in this firefight, and I was there. Number 1, part of what I'm going to tell you is going to be very shocking. Part of what I'm going to tell you is probably going to be very unbelievable, though instead of putting your glasses on, I'm going to ask you to put your skeptical on. But please feel free to do your own homework. I know the Freedom of Information Act isn't much to go on, but it's the best we've got. The local law library is a good place to look for congressional records. So if one continues to do their homework, then one can be standing vigilant in guard in regards to their country. Deep underground military bases and the black budget. I love the country I am living in more than I love my life, but I would not be standing before you now, risking my life, if I did not believe it was so. The first part of this talk is going to concern deep underground military bases and the black budget. The black budget is a secretive budget that garners 25% of the gross national product of the United States. The black budget currently consumes $1.25 trillion a year. At least this amount is used in black programs like those concerned with deep military underground bases. Presently, there are 129 deep underground military bases throughout the United States. They've been building these 129 bases day and night, unceasingly since the 40s. Some of them were built even earlier than that. These bases are basically large cities underground connected by high-speed magneto-leviton trains that can reach speeds up to Mach 2. Several books have been written about this activity. Al Bellick has my only copy of that. Richard Soder, a PhD architect, has risked his life talking about these. He worked with a number of government agencies in deep military underground bases. Around where you live in Idaho, there are 11 of them. The average depth of these bases is over a mile, and they are again basically whole cities underground. They all are between 2.66 and 4.25 cubic miles in size. They have laser drilling machines that can drill a tunnel 7 miles long in one day. Black projects sidestep the authority of Congress, which, as we all know, is illegal. Right now, the New World Order is depending on these bases. If I had known at the time I was working on them that the New World Order was involved, I would not have done it. I was lied to rather extensively. Development of military technology, implied German interest in hyperspace technology, and more. Basically, as far as technology is concerned, for every calendar year that transpires, military technology increases by 44.5 years. This is why it is easy to understand that back in 1943, they were able to create, through the use of vacuum tube technology, a ship that could literally disappear from one place and reappear in another. My father, Otto Oskar Schneider, fought on both sides of the war. He was originally a U-boat captain and was captured and repatriated in the United States. He was involved with different kinds of concerns such as the atom bomb, the H-bomb, the Philadelphia experiment. He invented a high-speed camera that took pictures of the first atom bomb testing on the Bikini Island, July 12, 1946. I have those original photos of that test, and the photos also show UFOs fleeing the bomb site at a high rate of speed. Bikini Island at the time was infested with them. especially under the water. And the natives had problems with their animals being mutilated. At the time, General MacArthur felt that the next war would be with aliens from other worlds. Anyway, my father laid the groundwork with the Theriaceans about the Philadelphia experiment, as well as other experiments. What does that have to do with me? Nothing other than the fact that he was my father. I don't agree with what he did on the other side, but I think he had got a lot of guts in coming here. He hated Germany. He was hated in Germany. There was a $1 million reward payable in gold to anyone who killed him. Obviously, they did not succeed. Anyway, back to the topic, deep underground military bases. The Firefight at Dulce. Back in 1954, under the Eisenhower administration, the federal government decided to circumvent the Constitution of the United States and form a treaty with these alien entities. It was called the 1954 Greta Treaty, which basically made the agreement with the aliens involved could take a few cows and test their implanting techniques on a few human beings, but that they had to give details about the people involved. Slowly, the aliens altered the bargain until they decided they wouldn't abide to it at all. In '79, this was the reality. And the firefight at Dulce occurred quite by accident. I was involved in building an addition to the deep underground military base at Dulce, which is probably the deepest base. It goes down 7 levels and is over 2.5 miles deep. At that particular time, we had drilled 4 distinct holes in the desert, and we were going to link them together and blow out large sections at a time. My job was to go down into the holes and check the rock samples and recommend the explosive to deal with the particular rock. As I was heading down there, we found ourselves amidst a large cavern that was full of outer space aliens, otherwise known as the Greys. I had shot 2 of them. And at that time, there were more than 30 people down there. About 40 more came down after this started, and all of them were killed. We had surprised the whole underground base of existing aliens. Later, we found out that they had been living on our planet for such a long time, perhaps millions of years. This could explain a lot of what is behind the theory of ancient astronauts. Anyway, I was shot in the chest with one of their weapons, which was a box on their body that blew a hole in me and gave me a nasty dose of cobalt radiation. I have had cancer because of that. I didn't get really interested in UFO technology until I started to work at Area 51 north of Las Vegas. After 2 years of recuperating after a 1979 incident, I went back to work with Morrison and Knudsen, EG&G, and other companies. At Area 51, they were testing all kinds of peculiar spacecraft. How many people are familiar with Bob Lazar? He was a physicist working at Area 51 trying to decipher the propulsion factor in some of these crafts. Schneider's worries about the government factions, railroad cars, and shackle contracts. Now I'm very worried about the activity in the federal government. They have lied to the public, stonewalled senators, and refused to tell the truth in regard to the alien matters. I can go on and on. I can tell you that I am rather disgruntled. Recently, I knew someone who lived near where I live in Portland, Oregon. He had worked at Gunderson Steel Fabrication, where they make railroad cars. Now, I knew this fellow for the better part of 30 years, and he was kind of a quiet type. He came in to see me on one day, excited. He told me they are building prisoner cars. He was nervous. Gunderson, he said, had a contract with the federal government to build 107,200 full-length railroad cars, each with 143 pairs of shackles. There are 11 subcontractors in this giant project. Supposedly Gunderson got over $2 billion for the contract. Bethlehem Steel and other steel outfits are also involved. He showed me one of the cars in the rail yards in North Portland. He was right. If you multiply 107,200 times 143, you come up with about 15 million. This is probably the number of people who disagree with the federal government. No more can you vote any of these people out of office. Our present structure of government is technocracy, not democracy. And it is a form of feudalism. It has nothing to do with the Republic of the United States. These people are godless. They have legislated out prayer in public schools. You can get fined up to $100,000 and 2 years in prison for praying in school. I believe you can do better. I also believe that the federal government is running the gambit of enslaving the people of the United States. I am not a very good speaker, but I'll keep shooting my mouth off until somebody puts a bullet in me, because it's worth it to talk about a group like this. America's black program contractors. There are other problems. I have some interesting 1993 figures. There are 29 prototype stealth aircraft presently. The budget of the United States Congress, 5-year plan for these, $245.6 million. You couldn't buy spare parts for these black programs for that amount. So we've been lied to. Black budget is roughly $1.3 trillion every 2 years. A trillion is 1,000 billion. $1 trillion weighs 11 tons. The United States Congress never sees the books involved with these clandestine pot of gold contractors of sleuth program. EG&G, Westinghouse, McDonnell Douglas, Morrison Knudsen, Wackenhut Security Systems, Boeing Aerospace, Lorimar Aerospace, Aerospecial in France, Mitsubishi's Industries, Ryder Trucks, Bechtel, IG, Farben, plus a host of hundreds more. Is this what we are supposed to be living up to as freedom-loving people? I don't believe so. Star Wars and apparent alien threat. Still, 68% of military budget is directly or indirectly affected by the black budget. Star Wars relies heavily upon stealth weaponry. By the way, none of the stealth programs would have been available if we had not taken apart crashed alien discs. None of it. Some of you might ask what the space shuttle is shuttling. Large ingots of special metals that are milled in space and cannot be produced on the surface of the Earth. They need the near vacuum of outer space to produce them. We are not even being told anything close to the truth. I believe our government officials have sold us down the drain, lock, stock, and barrel. Up until several weeks ago, I was employed by the United States government with a Rhyolite 38 clearance factor, one of the highest in the world. I believe the Star Wars program is there solely to act as a buffer to prevent an alien attack. It has nothing to do with the Cold War, which was only a toy to garner money from all of the people. For what? The whole lie was planned and executed for the last 75 years. Stealth aircraft technology, used by U.S. agencies and the UN. Here's another piece of information for you folks. The Drug Enforcement Administration and the ATF, rely on stealth technical weaponry for as much as 40% of their operational budgets. This was in 93, and the figures have gone up considerably since. Imagine with 93. We are 2024 now. That's what? 30 years? The UN used American stealth aircraft for over 25% of their collective worldwide operations from 90 to 92, according to the Center of Strategic Studies and the UN Report 3092. Guardians of Stealth and Delta Force Origins of the Bosnian conflict. The Guardians of Stealth. There are at least three distinct classifications of police that guard our most well-kept secrets. I'll start that over. The Guardians of Stealth and Delta Force Origins of the Bosnian conflict. The Guardians of Stealth. There are at least 3 distinct classifications of police that guard our most well-kept secrets. Number 1, the Military Joint Tactical Force, MJTF, sometimes called Delta Force or Black Beret, is a multinational tactical force primarily used to guard various stealth aircraft worldwide. By the way, there were 172 stealth aircraft built. 10 crashed, so there were, at last count, 162. Bill Clinton signed them away about 6 weeks ago to the UN. There have been indications that Delta Force was sent over to Bosnia during the last days of the Bush administration as covert sniper force, and that they started taking pot shots at each side of the controversy in order to actually start the Bosnian conflict that would be used to succeed administration for political purposes. Thoughts on the bombings in the United States. I was hired not long ago to report on the World Trade Center bombing. I was hired because I know about 90 some odd variations of chemical explosives. I looked at the pictures taken right after the blast. The concrete was puddled and melted. The steel in the rebar was literally extruded up to 6 feet longer than its original length. There is only one weapon that can do that, a small nuclear weapon. That's a construction type nuclear device. Obviously, when they say that it was nitrate explosive that did the damage, they are lying 100%, folks. The people they have in custody probably didn't even do the crime. As a matter of fact, I have reason to believe that the same group held in custody did do other crimes, such as killing a rabbi in New York. However, I want to further mention that with the last explosion in Oklahoma, they are saying that it was a nitrate or fertilizer bomb. First, they came out and said it was a 1,000-pound fertilizer bomb. Then it was 1,500, then 2,000 pounds. Now it's 20,000. You can't put 20,000 pounds of fertilizer in a Ryder truck. Now, I've never mixed explosives per se. I know the chemical structure and application of construction explosives. My reputation was based on it. I helped hollow out more than 13 deep underground military bases in the States. I worked on the Malta project in West Germany, in Spain, and in Italy. I can tell you from experience that a nitrate explosion would not have hardly shattered the windows of a federal building in Oklahoma. It would have killed a few people and knocked part of the facing off the building, but it would have never done that kind of damage. I believe I have been lied to, and I am not taking it any longer. So I am telling you that you've been lied to. The truth behind the Republican contract with America. I don't perceive at this time that we have too much more life left in this country at present time. We are laughing stock of the world because we are being hoodwinked by so many evil people that are running the country. I think we can do better. I think people over 45 are seriously worried about their future. I'm going to run some scary scenarios with you. The contract with America, it contains the same technology that Adolf Hitler used to subvert Germany in 1931. I believe we can do better. The contract with America is the last-ditch effort by our federal government to tear away the Constitution in the Bill of Rights. Some statistics on black helicopter presence. This is crazy, the black helicopter presence, because I have had probably 20, maybe 25 different people, mainly from Western United States, so like California, New Mexico, and such, and in desert or hot and arid places, talk about having experiences with Dogman and then seeing blacked out helicopters. Also, I'm starting to believe that the weather has something to do with certain things, certain attacks as well. And I know people are going to be like, whoa, dude, you're going really far down the hole there on that one. But look at Virginia in 2022, and I'll explain that in a second after I'm done. I'm almost done with this. The black helicopters, there are over 64,000 black helicopters in the States. For every hour that goes by, there is one being built. Is this the proper use of our money? What does the federal government need with 64,000 tactical helicopters? If they are not trying to enslave us, I doubt if the entire military needs 64,000 worldwide. I doubt if all the world needs that many. There are 157 F-117A stealth aircraft loaded with LiDAR and computer-enhancing image radar. They can see you walking from room to room when they fly over your house. They see objects in the house from the air with variation limit of an inch to 30,000 miles. That's how accurate it is. Now, I worked in the federal government for a long time and know exactly how they handle their business. Last part. Before I went to talk in Vegas, I drove a friend down to Joshua Tree near 29 Palms. I drove in the mountains in order to get to Needles at California, and I was followed by two government E350 vans with G14 plates, each with a couple of occupants, one of which had an Uzi. I knew exactly who they were. I have spoken 19 times and have probably reached 45,000 people. Well, I got ahead of them and came to a stop in the middle of the road. They both went to either side of me and down a ravine. Is this what it's going to take? I cut up my security card and sent it back to the government and told them if I was threatened, and I have been, that I was going to upload 140,000 pages of documentation to the internet about the government structure and the whole plan. I've already begun that task. Thank you very much. For those of you who know, and not that it has anything to do with my channel, I just think it's weird. I was followed a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, actually, sorry, by a Chevy Express van with government plates, G13, not G14, but G13 plates. I don't know what that has anything to do. I don't know if it has anything to do with my channel or what, or with other things that Victor had talked to us about, but it was really, really sketchy. I think that a lot of people, a lot of researchers, people that have pushed buttons die out real quick without any kind of explanation. Scott Carpenter, Claudia Ackley, the Bigfoot guy, that channel that got in a car accident. I don't know his name. I don't listen to other channels, but I know he was a researcher. And a few others. So that just randomly, very quickly got sick. Brenton Swanton, I think his name was. I only know him via Kirk Stokes, and they were at one time friends, but I guess Brenton is the reason why Kirk Stokes left the crypto world, because his best friend, a good friend, kind of turned on him, which is weird. But yeah, it's just weird. So many researchers quickly like that. Claudia Ackley, I was talking to her a month before she died. Linda Godfrey was older. But, you know, just really, if you think about it, that's scary. That's really scary. And I'm sure there's other researchers in different fields dealing with reptilians, dealing with aliens, dealing with anything that shouldn't really be spoken about, that the government doesn't want us to talk about. Now, what does this have to do with Dogman and yada yada? Well, it has a lot to do with it, because they're talking, Schneider's talking about a lot of alien treaties, the Greta Treaty. You know, that treaty gave them permission to abduct random human beings and experiment on us, experiment on our children, our wives, our mothers, our sisters, our brothers, our uncles, and create horrendous monsters, you know? And I'm not saying they created Bigfoot or Dogman. I don't believe that. I do not believe that 100%. I think Bigfoot was here, may have been created by the aliens prior to humanity being here. I mean, there's that old kind of rumor or theory that they were created to dig gold. And then when the aliens realized that maybe they are kind of too dumb to do what they needed to do, they created us. Who knows? I don't believe that, but they may have created Bigfoot for that reason. I don't know. I just sharing something that I heard, but it's really freaking weird. Why is humanity obsessed with gold? At an early age, we know that it's valuable. What does that have to do with this? Well, I've shared this, and I think if anyone ever doubts that deep underground military bases, UFOs, and the reptilian or gray alien race doesn't have anything to do with Dogman, explain this. So the connection I'm going to share with you guys, I've shared this before, but I think it is so important not to overlook. The connection is a senator majority leader, Harry Reid, believes in what I'm going to share with you, that he's actually said out loud in public that it is reality. So, deep underground military bases, alien, Draco, Greys, UFOs, we wouldn't have this technology if it wasn't for the UFOs that we took apart, right? The Tic Tac, the Nimitz Tic Tac videos. There's two of them. One was released to the public, the other was not. There's a 149 page military report shared with our enemy, Russia, about these Tic Tac UFOs. Why would we share information with our enemy? Yeah, we might be enemies. We're, they're jerks, whatever they're doing. But is there, like he said, the Cold War, was it all a big front for something much, much deeper, much more evil? Most people who spent more than a day at Skinwalker Ranch brought something home with them from the property. The effect was almost universal and universally unpleasant. Even during the NIDS days when Keeler and Eric Davis spent literally hundreds of days and nights on watch at Skinwalker Ranch, 96 through 99, their wives would occasionally remark waking up at night and seeing people in their bedrooms or black shadows walking through their house. These post-ranch events were noticeable, but during the NIDS years, but they escalated dramatically with the AAWSAP and BAASS program at the ranch in 2009. That was the Tic Tac research. All 5 actively serving intelligence agency personnel who visited the ranch during the AAWSAP and BAASS program experienced profound anomalies while on the property. And even more importantly, all 5 brought something home with them. Jonathan Axelrod and his family are poster children for the eruption of anomalies in the home following trips to Skinwalker Ranch. For more than a dozen years following his June 2009 and subsequent trips, Axelrod's wife and then teenage children were subjected to a nightmarish Dogman appearing in their backyard, or blue, red, yellow, and white orbs routinely floating through their home and in their yard, to black shadow humans standing over their beds when they awoke, and to a relentless barrage of loud, unexplained footsteps waking up and down the stairs in their home. Walking up and down the stairs of their home, What was the once normal middle-class home in suburban Virginia became an inferno of bizarre, unexplained phenomenon. And Axelrod and his family were certain that the trigger for these transformations was his first trip to Skinwalker Ranch. It is indeed lucky that Axelrod's family was and is extremely stable, psychologically well-adjusted and grounded and prone to matter-of-fact reactions to the events. In a vivid contrast to the reaction of Axelrod's family is the reaction of Juliet Witt and her then roommate to the intense poltergeist activity that erupted in their home following a 2-day visit to Skinwalker Ranch, August 2009. The sudden eruption of poltergeist activity during the 2 wine bottles flung across the room, ceiling fans would turn on, TVs turn off on their own, lights going on and off and flickering, books showing up piled at the base of the stairs, clothing moved and laid out on the daughter's bedroom floor with no one else in their home, has continued to this day. The paranormal intrusion into the Witt's home originally caused a severe emotional reaction in her roommate and provoked the young man to leave the house. This emotional outcome of Skinwalker Ranch Skinwalker transmission event, a warning to other military personnel who were contemplating spending time there. So the 3 naval intelligence that were in charge or responsible for it was Axelrod, Costigan, and Wilson. They were straight, narrow, straight-laced military men. They were open-minded but skeptical of reports especially during the Tic Tac investigation and then at the Skinwalker Ranch. I find it strange that these BAASS and the other were all researched at that ranch for a reason. It's kind of weird that these aerospace military places or military organizations would spend time at one of the most insanely paranormal, cryptid-filled, high strangeness location in America. Makes no sense, but they did. So after spending time there at the ranch, this is what happened. "10 days after the ranch, Keeler received a phone call from Jonathan Axelrod. He sounded puzzled as he recounted almost immediately after returning home from the Skinwalker Ranch and from researching the Tic Tac on the Nimitz. Strange things had begun to happen, not to him, but to his family. Axelrod recounted that on previous night at 2 a.m., while he was asleep beside his wife, Ruth had seen a large black humanoid shape walking towards her in their bedroom. Ruth did not scare easily, but she had felt alarmed and turned on the light next to her, but saw nothing. 10 minutes later, she clearly heard footsteps coming down the stairs. She slipped out of bed and walked to the landing, but there was nobody there. Quickly, she walked to her teenage son's bedrooms and saw they were both fast asleep. Axelrod said his wife was not completely freaked out, but the episode had concerned her. During a second call, a month later, Axelrod reported an alarming escalation in anomalous activity in their home. All of the activity appeared to be directed at the family. On several occasions, Axelrod was out of town. Axelrod reported that while he was on a mission overseas, his 16-year-old son Paul woke up to multiple small blue orbs flying around his room. Occasionally, one would fly very close to him. According to Paul, the orbs appeared to be moving under some sort of control. When he begins yelling, his mother ran into the room, but the orbs were instantly gone. Even after this bizarre night of orbs, Ruth continued seeing shadow-like figures in the home. She routinely heard loud noises down in the kitchen after everyone had gone to bed. Ruth and Jonathan Axelrod were certain that these events had begun after he had returned home from his trip to Skinwalker Ranch. Later, an even more bizarre event with strong links to Skinwalker Ranch erupted in the home. Again, Jonathan was out of town working on an assignment. It was after midnight. Ruth had turned all the lights off in the kitchen and was preparing to go upstairs when her eyes caught movement out in the yard. She moved over to the window for a better look out in the yard, then froze at what she witnessed, the most bizarre sight she'd ever beheld. Standing upright and leaning against a tree at the perimeter of her yard was a huge wolf-like creature. She saw the creature plainly in the dim nightlight. It had long hair and looked like a wolf, but it was standing on its hind legs. Ruth stood paralyzed, feeling both confusion and the feeling of dread. The creature appeared to be staring right at her. Its gaze was not normal. She continued to stare at this eerie sight, trying to fathom the impossibility of an upright, walking, wolf-like creature in the quiet upper-middle-class suburban Virginia neighborhood. The creature then took one last look at her, turned and walked slowly into the woods. Within minutes, she lost sight of it. She stood there for a long time, trying to determine what had happened, or if it was a hallucination. The scene had been so bizarre and frightening, she decided not to call her husband or tell her kids. The kids were stable, well-adjusted, but Ruth had noticed that they were on edge. From these unexplained events. 3 days later, at 10:30 on a bright Saturday morning, the two teenagers, Axelrod's sons, were downstairs in the living room. When Paul got up to stretch his legs, a movement in the yard caught his eye, and he gasped in astonishment at the sight. A huge wolf-like creature standing on its hind legs in the backyard, staring right at him. Alerted by his brother's gasp, Michael jumped up and saw this 7-foot-tall wolf gazing menacingly at them. The animal appeared to be completely comfortable standing on its hind legs. Both Axelrod boys felt a sense of fear. Suddenly, the beast took off running toward the tree line, its long brown-black fur blowing rapidly with the movement. The beast ran easily and fluidly on its hind legs, with long strides, seemingly impossible for a normal canine anatomy. Both boys stood in silence as the wolf was soon lost in the trees that bordered Axelrod's property. The thick, insulated windows had prevented them from hearing any sound the beast may have transmitted. A couple of hours later, Ruth came back. The boys were breathlessly told their mother about the event. Ruth felt a deep chill as she excitedly described in detail her apparition, identical to what they saw. By the time Axelrod returned from his mission, the boys had researched what it was they had seen, trying to find confirmation that this bizarre event was real. The teenagers had become familiar with Linda Godfrey and the creature she called Dogman, and as they described her in their sighting to the dad, Jonathan felt a chill. Ruth's description was even more disturbing because she felt the beast looking at her
in the malevolent way, excluding a threat demeanor. The following day, the family found out numerous trees in their yard had fresh, deep scars in the bark, as if sharp objects had been drawn vertical lines down the tree. Claw marks was definitive description Jonathan Axelrod relayed to his counterpart. The appearance of an upright wolf-like creature in the backyard led to a feeling of deep unease in Jonathan's mind. He confessed being disturbed while his busy profession career with naval intelligence, His professional career in naval intelligence was intensifying with the daily engagement on multiple highly classified advanced technology. His home was turning into a bizarre paranormal Disneyland. So he's dealing with highly advanced aerospace and other such. Phil Schneider talks about it. His family sees Dogman. This is 2009. Linda Godfrey obviously was doing Dogman research before YouTube. I mean, not before YouTube, but before the mass explosion of people talking about Dogman on YouTube. So there wasn't like like it is now. Oh my God, we saw a Dogman for attention. They weren't looking for attention. They just had this shit happen to them in their home, which is terrifying, but connected. I hope you guys can see the connection. I do. Maybe I'm just crazy. I don't know. Here's the thing with the Devin Williams case. Transporting dogmen. Arizona. Tonto National Forest. Was the dogman or dogmen that the Axelrod family saw sent by the government? Absolutely. Absolutely. Don't talk about what your husband shared with you. Don't talk about what your dad shared with you. Shut up, or these things will continue to happen. I truly believe this government, and I say this government, I'm not meaning ours, I mean the NWO, has made pacts with more than the Draco. If they can construct and physically make a battleship leave one port and show up in a different port like that, you're telling me they can't open portals in Jonathan Axelrod's room and send a shadow figure to scare the family? Like, hey, John, aren't you going a little far here? Aren't you a little going too far? Now, what's the Senate Majority Leader have to say? Sorry about that. Really quick, I've had a lot of weird stuff been going on lately. But as I just said that car went by with the loud exhaust, that's why I said I was sorry. But I said, the Senate Majority Leader, Harry Reid, what does he say about this? And my computer shut off by itself, and my Epson laser printer that is connected to my internet just started going off and making this really weird noise. Also, I got a text, like one of those warnings from AT&T telling me that my phone, some information had been downloaded off my phone today, or yesterday, excuse me, like right before the tornado went through here. Went through upstate New York, and it was bad. So what does he have to say? Skinwalkers at the Pentagon provides a full picture of the purview and accomplishments achieved by the AAWSAP program. Readers will be amazed, enthralled, and I hope interest in studying UAPs and related phenomenon will increase. Senator Majority Leader Harry Reid says that about this book when they're talking about Dogman, paranormal, UFO. Why? Well, because Harry Reid knows this stuff needs to be shared. And then the government does stuff like this. Multiple attacks from 2020 all the way through. That's what I wanted to talk about, the weather thing. Virginia. There was at one time in Tazewell, Buchanan, Virginia, Mercer, West Virginia, which literally Mercer, Tazewell, and Buchanan all are along the border of West Virginia and Virginia. There was 7 or 8 people mysteriously died, mysteriously torn apart, dead, missing. A lot of people have gone missing in Buchanan, Tazewell, and Mercer counties. And there was some really weird weather going on when the government was in Tazewell cleaning up a mess that had a lot to do with Dogman and Crawler. Or what the government's name for crawlers is the pale demon. Then they do this stuff. They cover up attacks. I've been a subscriber for several months now, and I've been waiting for the right time to send you this. This is the 3rd time I've heard you speak about cover-ups in Tennessee, so I figured it's as good a time as any. Odds are nothing will change in the near future as far as our government coming clean. I will ask not to reveal our names or any specifics in our lives. If you did, it would be very easy to figure out the source of this experience, and NDAs were signed by the Rangers, law enforcement officials, and everyone involved. This was a requirement in order for these men to keep their jobs. You see, my husband and I are both born and raised in Polk County. We currently live in Benton, which is the county seat of Polk County. However, Cherokee National Forest makes up more than half of the county's landmass and lays claim to just under 49%. Because of this, the county's population does not reflect its size. In 2021, the population was just over 17,000, with Benton ringing in right about 100 or 1,500 citizens. Benton is small. Everyone knows everyone. They know who your parents are, who their parents were. Most of the citizens feel it's their business to know your business. We have 1 red light, 2 gas stations, and a grocery store. And there are 11 forest rangers who cover the county, and 3, maybe 4 game wardens. My husband is one of these. The attack occurred in the Chillowy Mountain, aka Benton Mountain. My husband was working on this day, but not on that mountain. He was working elsewhere in the county, but was called to the location as soon as the attack was reported. He arrived on the scene in just minutes. The following was told to me via my husband, and I can still recall to this day, almost word for word. When my husband arrived on the scene, he said there was so much chaos. They were told that a little boy and the mother had been attacked by something, and there was a little girl missing. They were told the attacker was a large black creature standing on 2 legs, so they immediately assumed it was a bear, a black bear. Although they are a rarity in the area, and for the most part black bear do not attack humans, unless it's a female with her cubs. Even then, the mom bear was more bluster and buff than actual bite. My husband did not see the little boy nor his mother. They were all airlifted to Chattanooga. While my husband was in the truck getting ready to go, one of the veteran paramedics who worked the search and rescue for another county came over and told my husband that he had treated several bear attacks over his lengthy career and none of these injuries nor the scene is consistent with any bear attack. He had ever seen. He was speaking very low and was looking around while he was speaking to my husband, as if making sure no one was listening or watching him speak to my husband. It was only then that my husband took notice of the people on the scene. He noticed there were several men and women that he had never seen before. He said he just assumed they may be upper tier TWRA officials or someone associated with the sheriff's department. After he was ready to go, he picked up his paperwork, camera, and walked toward the direction of the attacks. After all, it was his job. He would have to file the paperwork of the incident. As he continued down toward the area, he noticed that it was taped off. However, he recognized nobody in the security scene. When one of the men on the outside of the tape noticed he was coming that way, he began walking toward him and held up both hands. He told my husband not to come any closer. My husband started to say something, and the guy said, "This is above your pay grade." When asked what that meant, the man told him to talk to his immediate supervisor. But he was not to come any closer, so he turned around and went back to his truck. At this time, the Forest Service mainly communicated via radio, because cell phones they had did not get good reception back in the areas they patrolled. He picked up his radio to get in touch with his supervisor, who was supposed to be on his way. At the same time he was attempting to raise his supervisor on the radio, the supervisor called him to tell him to stay clear of the scene, as he would not be required to fill out any paperwork. In all the years he had worked, that had never happened. He said that it was there 1 minute. He said that it was that minute he realized something seriously was off, and the cover-up began. He just couldn't figure out what they were trying to hide, and it didn't take him long to figure it out. Within the next hour, 2 Suburbans arrived, with 6 men in each. These men were wearing camouflage. They had weapons, but they were not military. Each local official was basically instructed to search with these men. It wasn't until the men arrived they were permitted to go searching. They were told they could not begin the search until backup arrived. All forest personnel on site were armed with a sidearm. He also had shotguns for the ready. My husband had his sidearm at many times. He also had a Remington 870 in his vehicle. The deputies were also armed. My husband said all totaled there was 12 to 15 armed officers on the scene. Yet, they were made to wait because someone in the know didn't feel like this was enough manpower, firepower, for one black bear. Once they began the search, contrary to what's reported in some of the news channels and newspaper articles, it took several hours to find the little girl. The news reports also said that the bear had been killed by the rangers that day. Others reported it was the second bear which was killed that was responsible for the attack. As far as my husband is aware, no bear nor any sign of bear was ever found in the area. After they found the child, he heard 2 rangers on the radio that some strange tracks had been found, but they were not consistent with bear. Once these tracks were found, local law enforcement immediately dismissed at all point. The search was left to the guys from the Suburban. Some other conflicting reports were that the little girl was found 100 yards away from the original attack. However, she was not found near the attack site. It took several hours to find her. Many reports stated that there were 60 to 80 volunteer searchers. However, in the area, they felt they might find the little girl. No civilians were allowed. I will attempt to link a couple of the articles, which I have right here. Once the child's remains were found, what little they actually found was not routed to the normal way, nor per protocol. My husband could not find out what they did with what was left of that little girl. That's as far as I'll take that, but I will say my husband did not sleep at all for the next 5 days. Once he could close his eyes, he was unable to sleep for over 2 to 3 hours. For the next several months, he was unable to sleep, and when he did sleep, he would wake up in a cold sweat. We would be in a grocery store, restaurant, church, movie. He could be mowing the grass no matter what he was doing. I would often catch him just staring off and crying. It's like his soul had been broken or crushed. For a couple of years, he withdrew himself to the point of therapy. I was not sure I would ever get my husband back. They ended up having to sign an NDA. They never found the creature. They did find the little girl, torn apart. There's been rumors of sightings of a large black creature running or walking on 2 legs. And orbs have been spotted in the campground and maintenance areas. So the attacks are right here. They can be found online. Bear kills child in Chiloe Mountain. And they blame it on a bear. They say that this was a bear, yet here's a ranger or law enforcement official saying no, it wasn't a bear. It was a dogman. It was a dogman that attacked the mother and the son, who have never openly spoken about this attack. And a little girl lost her life. Yet the government doesn't want us to know. Tells us we're safe out in the woods. Was Claudia Ackley, did she meet her time too early because she was trying to sue the state of California just to prove that Bigfoot and Dogman existed in those woods? Could be.
And there you have it, folks. I do hope you all enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd really like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. With that, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.